Welcome everybody, my name's Ron, I will be your trainer today. Today we're going to be doing a portion of AUR TTB 101, Inspect and Service Brakes. We're going to be identifying hazards, assessing the risks and implementing controls when working with brake systems. I have our student attendance record. If you can just fill that out, pass it around, put your name, surname, company you work for. It's pretty self-explanatory, so I'll pass that around. You guys can fill it out. So we've got Tommy, Ty, Michael and Nathan. Is that right? Yeah. Rightio. So, anyone worked with brake systems before?
Yes.
Yep. Michael?
Just
Not really?
On my own vehicle, really.
Yeah, right.
Briefly.
Yeah. Tommy, you would have zero experience, would you not?
Yes.
Right. So, Tommy's had no experience with brakes, so this is why we have training, so she can learn. So just pass that around. So as I say, today identifying hazards, assessing the risk, implementing controls, live vehicle braking systems. Does anyone know the most hazardous part of brakes? No? Brake dust. Brake dust possibly has still got asbestos in it. So we'll start off with that because that's our main exposure when it comes to brakes. So in older brake components, brake pads, brake linings contain a lot of asbestos fibres. They have removed a portion of it. Some companies might have removed all of it, but we don't know. So we have to assume at all times that we're going to be dealing with asbestos, which can be serious to your lungs, your throat, respiratory problems, mesothelioma. Hope I said that right. But yeah, it can cause you extensive damage to your lungs. All those little airborne fibres in the air from brake dust, you breathe it in, you can't see it, but you will breathe it in, it'll attach itself to your lungs and you will have problems later on in life. That's our main concern. Mechanical injuries, obviously pinch points, sharp edges, we've got heavy components, crushing injuries and strains. So if you need anything to move that's pretty heavy, then either use a mechanical aid or a two-person lift. Obviously you guys that work on the bigger gear, bigger brake drums, it's all going to be pretty heavy. Light vehicle, it's usually just a one-person job. We've got rotating parts, brake discs rotate, brake drums rotate. It's quite easy to get your finger jammed somewhere. Obviously, if you're using power tools, make sure they're date tested and tagged. Check your tools before using them. Someone could have used it previously, damaged the electrical cord, and we've got frayed wires or whatever. Chemical exposure. We've got brake fluid. Brake fluid has a lot of chemicals in it. It's hygroscopic. So hygroscopic. Anyone heard that term?
Yes.
Todd? Yep. So hygroscopic is a substance that rapidly absorbs moisture. So whenever you open your brake fluid up, as soon as it's open to the atmosphere, it starts absorbing all the moisture that's in the air. Once it does that, it actually loses its boiling point temperature. It'll lower it, making your brakes less efficient. You'll have brake fade. So it's important to check that quite often. Every service, I think every 40,000 K, they recommend changing your brake fluid. If you don't, you risk it all being contaminated. It eventually turn into water and start rusting everything out inside your brakes. It's corrosive, can damage the paint of the car. If you spill brake fluid on a car's paint, immediately wash it off with water because it will take the paint off. If you get it on your skin and eyes, it can cause skin irritations, possibly hurt if you get in your eyes. And if it takes the paint off a car, then it's going to be highly corrosive. Cleaning solvents, i.e. brake clean, that's also volatile. It's pretty lethal sort of substance. Make sure you're wearing masks, nitrile gloves, PPE. Our most important PPE against brake fluid and working on brakes is obviously safety glasses. You don't want to get brake fluid in your eyes, and a mask when you're dealing with brake dust or volatile sprays like brake clean. Workshop hazards. Around the workshop, slippery surfaces can cause falls, trips, hazards. So when you're taking brake hoses off or bleeding brakes or whatever, make sure you're trapping that in a container. Drain tray, if you've got to remove the hoses or the brake calipers, use hose clamps to clamp those hoses off so you're not losing all the brake fluid onto the floor. Excessive noise and vibration from tools, impact guns, compressors going. Make sure you wear your ear protection. And it's been well documented that rattle guns, impact guns later on in life, because of all that impact going into your hand, will cause what they call scapholunate widening in your wrist, which I now have. So we've got to be aware of all the hazards that are involved in inspecting and servicing light vehicle brakes. We'll move along to our next slide. Visual inspection. So when we're inspecting our brakes, we're checking for visible damage, leaks, component wear. We can measure the brake pad thickness, check it against manufacturer's specifications to see if it's still within the limits. We can test brake fluid for contamination and proper levels. When we test the brake fluid, we would use a boiling point tester. That measures how much moisture is in the brake fluid. And if it's below the limitations set by the manufacturer, you need to flush it all out and change it. We examine all the rotors for warping. If they've got any marks, any scoring along here, they'll need to be machined. We inspect the brake lines, the flexible lines, to see if they're damaged, old age. They start cracking. They actually sometimes get bubbles in them. And when you put your foot on the brake, you might have a spongy pedal. It's all the brake fluid going into a bubble. So we've got to be give it a good inspection, because at the end of the day, brakes are probably the most important thing on the car. If we have a failure of our brake system, we can have a catastrophe or a fatality, which can cause a lot of issues and legal ramifications for the person working on it and who they work for. So brakes is very, very important. It also says there job safety analysis, or JSAs. So take fives or risk assessments is what we would normally do before we're starting a job. Assess the risk or the hazard and implement a control. So, moving along. Control measures. We have dust containment. So this is using a HEPA vacuum system to capture all the dust particles from the brakes. I've never worked anywhere in my life where they have that, although I have seen them in a smaller thing where they actually use a vacuum cleaner going into a separate container which vacuums all the brake dust out and puts it into there. Obviously big trucks are going to have a lot more brake dust than light vehicles, so that might be something they use in that, I don't know. However, wet cleaning is the most effective method of removing brake dust when you're working on brakes. Spray it down with water into a drain tray, and that will stop the airborne particles. I do know some other places that just blow it out with compressed air. So under no circumstances do we blow brakes out in a workshop with compressed air. It's just blowing out into the workshop. Everyone's breathing it in, and later on in life it can cause some serious issues, like I've said previously. Proper ventilation, another thing that we can utilise. So make sure the workshop's well ventilated, or if you have a dust extraction fan system, make sure you've turned it on. Hopefully we don't need to get to that because we've done our wet cleaning and we've contained all the brake dust particles into one container, which would be disposed of in our liquid hydrocarbon bin. Safe work practices and PPE. So we all know what PPE is, personal protective equipment. So picking the right PPE, nitrile gloves for chemical protection. Obviously brakes are dirty, so we want to keep our hands clean as well. So wearing gloves is probably good practice. A lot of places now it's just mandatory, they've just got gloves on. Safety glasses, goggles. We don't want anything in our eyes. We don't want to have eye damage or anything like that where we might go blind. Goggles, you can wear goggles. Respiratory protection, i.e. dust mask, or if you want to go that one further, you can wear a respirator and a face mask if you so choose. It's up to you, it's your personal, it's you that's working on it. How you protect yourself is up to you. However, we can go with just the standard safety glasses, face mask, do the wet clean down, and personally it's up to you how you want to protect yourself from these things. There we go. Never use compressed air to clean brake assemblies or components. Disperses harmful particles. And like I say, those harmful particles are that tiny and that small. You can't see it with the naked eye, but you can certainly breathe it in. And the smell of burnt asbestos isn't that great. If anyone's ever done a clutch that just comes apart in fibres, it's not nice. Use vacuum systems or wet cleaning. Manufacturer's guidelines. So we always make sure we look at the manufacturer's guidelines for specific service procedures, torque specifications. Manufacturer's guidelines and workplace guidelines could be different though. The manufacturer might say, the minimum thickness for your brake pads is 1 mil, but your workshop might say, no, we want to change them to 3 mil. If you change them to 3 mil, when they're down to 3 mil instead of 1 mil, you're going to reduce it potentially overheating, because the lower the pad gets, the more it's going to heat up, because it's got no material there. So manufacturer's guidelines and workplace guidelines could be different, so just thought I'd add that one there in case you didn't know. Inspection service procedures. So we're going to thoroughly examine all the brake components for visible damage, wear patterns, potential failure points. Measurement. Use calibrated tools to measure brake pad thickness, rotor thickness and run out. So we're using vernier calipers to measure, you can use that to measure brake pad thickness and rotor thickness. Run out, we would use a dial gauge. It's very important to make sure that the measuring tools we're using are accurate and correct and not damaged. So at times you actually have to have your measuring tools calibrated by an outside company that calibrates measuring tools. Anyone had their torque wrench calibrated?
Yeah.
Type?
Every
You're
6
nodding your
months.
head. How often?
6 months.
Every 6 months.
Yeah.
Mine's brand new, so.
Brand new?
Yeah, I've done that one.
Doesn't mean it's right.
We've got calipers on our board.
Yeah. So a lot of places, it is good practice to get your measuring tools calibrated to make sure they're still within spec. Fluid assessment. Test brake fluid for contamination, moisture content, proper level, replace if condition is compromised. So, like I said, boiling point testers, they test for the amount of moisture in brake fluid. You can usually tell as soon as you open it, by the look of it, Brake fluid's nice and clean and clear. If you open it up and it's dark and murky in there, then it's probably not very nice, it's contaminated, which causes further issues, especially the moisture content will cause rust inside your brakes. Seize up calipers, seize up wheel cylinders, seize the pistons up, and you get all sorts of issues later on. Component integrity. Inspect your brake lines, hose, fittings, leaks, cracks, deterioration. That could compromise the system performance. Functional testing. So, functional testing. We go for a road test, make sure those brakes are working. Make sure it's pulling up straight when you're braking. Make sure the handbrake works, because that's your last point of defence. If your brakes fail, you've got a mechanical handbrake. Although some are now electric, I'm not sure how that would go. So your handbrake is your emergency stopping apparatus at the end of the day. So make sure everything's working the way it should. Document all your findings. If you find something wrong, report, write it on the job card, work required, report to your supervisor. Make sure the customer is aware of the issues with their vehicle. Compliance with workplace policies and procedures. So we got OSHA regulations for vehicle safety. You've got your own workplace specific safety protocols and inspection checklists, proper hazard reporting, incident documentation, normally you write it on the job card. Maintain service records, so after you've done your work on the car, you fill out the job card, what you've done or reported extra work required. Obviously workplace specific safety would be take 5 before commencing work, assess the risks. If you've got to use a hoist or trolley jack, check the safe working level, do a hoist inspection, use safety stands, make sure your hoist is locked in. If you raise it up in the air, lower it onto the locks. Don't just leave it up in the air. Make sure you do all that. Technician training. Obviously, bit of training, how to check all this and what the risks are and hazards when dealing with brakes. Everyone needs to be trained in that. Some people might just say, well, I can change my own brake pads. And then they end up in a world of pain because they don't know you've got to push the piston back, and then they ground their brake pad down to make it fit. Because I did have a student who'd done that to his own car because he didn't know he had to push the piston back. So he got his brand new brake pad, grind it down on a grinder with all that asbestos till it made it fit. So his new brake pads were no different to his old ones. Get the proper training. As I say, brakes that can be fatal if not done properly. Rightio, we'll just summarise this up. So when we're working on brakes, it's good to have a comprehensive risk assessment. So take 5's, JSAs, if you have to fill out a JSA, if your work requires you to do that. There's multiple hazards, a lot of dangers involved if not done properly. You can hurt yourself. Controls, implement the engineering controls first, followed by the administration, and then PPE is our last final layer of protection. Engineering controls, obviously, remove the risk altogether. Document all your procedures and ensure you're compliant with your workplace policies and requirements. Commitment to safety and brake system servicing protects technicians, ensures vehicle reliability, safeguards the public. Okay guys, that just about finishes that little section of inspecting brakes and identifying the hazards. I've got a little 5-question quiz for everybody to see how much of that you absorb And I know you look like a bunch of very intelligent people. Well done, Nathan, first to finish. Oh. Tommy's still going. Any questions? No?
Pretty understanding.
Oh, name and date on top, sorry guys, there is a section there for your name and date.
Is that
8th of the 8th. Rightio, is everyone done?
Yeah.
Rightio, I'll just go through all the questions. What's a common hazard when working on brake systems? Electrical shock, inhalation of brake dust, exposure to loud noise, or ultraviolet radiation?
B.
B?
Yep.
Everyone happy with that answer?
Yeah.
I'm happy with it. True or false? Brake dust may contain harmful substances like asbestos.
True.
Very true, isn't it? Hazards posed by servicing hot brake components immediately after a vehicle's being used. What did we get there?
C, thermal burns.
Thermal burns. Not going to get frostbite.
No.
What situation could lead to a slip hazard in the workshop?
Brake fluid leaking on the floor.
Brake fluid leaking on the floor? Leaving your tools everywhere on the floor, probably. True or false? Wearing gloves can help reduce the risk of stint exposure to brake fluid.
True.
That is true. Well done, everybody. Thank you for that. There is one other thing left to fill out. Participant feedback form. You don't have to write your name on this. This will be anonymous. So if you want to provide feedback, whether it's positive or negative, negative criticisms always helps us for self-improvement. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Actually, you've got to go, don't you? It's almost 1:30. Well, thank you for attending, Michael. That was great. Look forward to see you again. And thank you, Nathan. I hope you've all got something out of that, especially you guys that don't actually, might not work on breaks all the time.
Just about never.
I can imagine possibly your workshop would be compressed air blowing guides from the 70s. Thank you, Tommy.
It's probably a good thing.
Well done. Done a good job.
Thanks.
That's okay. Well, thank you.
It's probably a good thing they don't do breaks often.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, that just about wraps it up, I think. Sure it does. Thank you, Ty. Thanks for coming.
No worries, mate.
Let's get this video done. Oh, don't know how to turn it off.
Just up there.